Walter Nolan, the new member of the Arizona Cardinals. And this was one of the, everyone has their, John Gambadero's got his Gambo 5, who he does amazing work with. PHNX Sports, PHNX Cardinals, Johnny and Bo, guys I both know, both really good dudes. I've talked about them before. I think they do their top 5 guys that they expect to be available or something like that. Yesterday I did my top 5 guys on social media, which did some numbers. And then I gave you guys the top 3 players that I think would be available at 16 and who I believe the Arizona Cardinals would realistically select. And I said Walter Nolan, Michael Williams, Josh Simmons. The reason why I put Walter Nolan at 3rd is because I just didn't expect the Cardinals to be so redundant in one spot. That being in the interior position. And Aaron, I love where your head is at. We will get there in just a second. In that interior position of Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell and Darius Robinson, who plays on the inside. And I even said this, so I should have been more alert to it, that the Arizona Cardinals just value interior pressure. If there's one way to even make the best quarterbacks, I'm talking Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, feel the pressure, it's not necessarily on the outside, although those guys are very valuable. They keep those guys in the pocket, the contain, sacks, all that stuff is really important. But if you can generate pressure up the middle, that's the one thing that threw Tom Brady off. That's what pissed off Tom Brady more than anything else. It wasn't the guys on the edge. He had good pocket awareness. But when you have nowhere to step into, that's what makes things really difficult. And so adding Walter Nolan to that fold, the Cardinals' defensive line, I haven't been excited to watch a Cardinals defensive line since J.J. Watt joined Chandler Jones in 2020, I believe it was. And just to be fair, that didn't work out. J.J. Watt was good. Chandler Jones was so-so. And people will point back and say, well, Chandler Jones had 10 sacks that year. 5 of them came in one game. So I'm ecstatic, right? Because I'm really thrilled with what the Cardinals have. Now on a defensive line that was just rolling out bodies, high school level players, it felt like at times. You now have Dalvin Tomlinson, Walter Nolan, Darius Robinson, Baron Browning, Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell. You've got dudes on dudes on dudes in that defensive line. And I think what Monti, Ossenfort, and JG were targeting was a team that can just keep putting guys back in that they can trust to go after the passer. And I mean that in terms of this. The Buffalo Bills don't necessarily have one or two dudes that they can just get to the quarterback and get 17 plus sacks. That is not the Buffalo Bills. But one of the reasons why they're so good at getting pressure is because they've just got dudes on dudes on dudes. They've got above average after above average pass rusher that they can just keep cycling through. Just keep on cycling and churning through these guys. And the opposing team's offensive line, they get tired. And when you're bringing in Darius Robinson, then you're bringing in Walter Nolan, then you're bringing in Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell, and just continuous fresh legs, that's going to frustrate the opposing team. So there's that as well. I'm starting off with all the positives before I get to some of the, not necessarily negatives, but just some of the things that I didn't love. So there's that aspect of it, that the Cardinals took an approach of listen, we're not going to have Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons on this line next year, but we're just going to keep throwing dude after dude after dude at you. And that's what Walter Nolan brings. Continues to add an element of depth and above average pass rushing to this team. And then the other thing, do you remember watching those Cardinals games last year and watching Chuba Hubbard just gash them on the ground? Do you remember watching Chuba Hubbard and Kenneth Walker in late games, late in the year, just churn out yards after yards, and the Cardinals could do nothing to stop it. That was probably even a bigger weakness than not being able to get pressure on the quarterback consistently. Because what you do with a guy like Jonathan Gannon is he's so smart, he's just manufacturing blitzes. He's just manufacturing sacks and pressure. He's bringing in design blitzes. He's confusing the opposing team's quarterback. But it's pretty hard to just scheme up guys to stop the run. That's difficult. So when you add in all these players, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Robinson, Walter Nolan to the fold, Josh Sweat, Baron Browning, it's going to be hard to run the ball on that defensive line. I'm not saying it's going to be a top 5 defensive line, but if this team had a top half defensive line last year, they make the playoffs, and that's the difference. Keep on adding guys to that line. So that's all the positive. Walter Nolan, a great player, a good selection, a B- guy. And then this is the part where people get frustrated with me. If I'm grading the Cardinals draft, I'm giving them a B-. Solid grade. Solidify the defensive line. Stop allowing players like Chuba Hubbard and Kenneth Walker to get gobs of yardage on you in late game scenarios, late in the season where you need a win. Just keep on adding dudes to that defensive line, Buffalo Bills style, and just throw above average defensive lineman after above average defensive lineman at a quickly fatigued offensive line of the opposing team. Just make it tough on them. So I get it. You are revamping this defensive line, and I really like that. But here's the part where people get frustrated by me. I think it's a solid selection. I think it's a B-. Maybe I'm the only person here who didn't get A++s in school, so I consider a B- to be a good grade. But here's what I'll say. This is not a fanboy account. This is not a fan account. I'm not here to boost up the team's ego. I'm not here to hand out feel-good letter grades. If you want to say the Cardinals get an A for last night, you're allowed to have that opinion. I don't necessarily believe that you believe that. And my opinion doesn't matter any more than your opinion, any more or less. I firmly believe that. A B- is a solid grade. And I see my guy Big Bird in the chat. He's already frustrated with me. B-. Good player. Physical. Continues to add to the depth of that defensive line. A good pick. There's nothing wrong with saying that's a good pick. But the one thing that frustrates me about this pick is it just feels a little conservative. And so here's where I go from the 11 minutes of being pomp and thrill and happiness and good stuff for the Cardinals. Aaron, not shots fired at PHNX. I love those guys. Jody and Bo are like some of the coolest guys in the world. So this is not shots fired at anyone. Well, that's not true. This is shots fired at some other fan stuff, but they're allowed to do that. But it's certainly not PHNX, especially a couple of guys who I don't think are fanboys. Love those dudes. But this is not a fan account. This is not me fanboying it up. I'm going to be honest with this team. And that's what gets me in trouble sometimes. But here's the thing is I am not someone to blow smoke and give out feel-good letter grades. If I thought the Cardinals got an A last night, I would have told you that. But how I felt watching the Cardinals make their selection last night for a physical, strong, good defensive lineman is, good pick. Solid pick. Add to the depth of that defensive line. Add multiple dudes to that line to just keep on bringing them in when an offensive line is frustrated because you can just bring in fresh guy after fresh guy. So, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Good pick, but it's a B-. And Walter Nolan, I thought he'd be available there. A lot of people last night seemed kind of surprised that he was available there. I didn't think that. I thought he'd be available at 16. If I'm being honest with you, I thought they'd go Simmons at 16, although that does feel a little high. I would have understood it because Walter Nolan feels redundant of what they've done all off season long. But here's the other good thing for Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon. They had a plan, and they saw that plan through. They said the defensive line sucks. We're fixing it. And you know what? Even though I'm giving them a B minus grade, I can say, you know what? They had a plan. I can clearly say this offseason it was fix the freaking defense. Fix the defensive line even more specifically. And that's where I say, good on the Cardinals. Way to have a plan. But again, it's not a feel-good account. I'm not a fan account. Consider me a national guy just focusing on Arizona sports because this is the teams he loves, and he's going to continue to hold them accountable. So a B minus grade, solid B grade. I just wish the Cardinals were more aggressive. And so last night, the conservative pick of taking Walter Nolan, I like it. Solid pick, good player, potentially even the right thing to do. But at some point, or not even potentially, probably was the right thing to do. But at some point, and we're going to get to this in just a second, I just need the Cardinals to be aggressive. And Walter Nolan wasn't the aggressive swing I was looking for, but I'll take it. I'm not going to complain that they got a solid defensive lineman to come in, plug up the run holes, stop allowing Chuba Hubbard and Kenneth Walker to run just for gashing and gaping number of yards on you and make it happen. So the Walter Nolan thing, all in, loved it. Good pick, B minus grade. Solid grade. Nothing wrong with that. They didn't get a franchise-altering, changing player in this draft like an Abdul Carter. So I'm not going to give them an A+ just to make us all feel better. I'm going to give you an honest grade. So that next year, if I do give the Cardinals an A+, you know I mean it, and I'm not just giving them 2 A+s in a row.